Good morning and welcome to Oslo Botanical Gardens. I hope the sunlight shining off my bald head isn't going to be too distracting. If so, you may want to wear sunglasses. I've come in here this morning to talk to you about personal style and the development of personal style and the myth that it should be a constant. 20 odd years ago when I started out, everyone was talking about it, and it was almost as if you had to develop a personal style to stand out and to somehow make a statement that you were an authentic artist. And I did. I got to a point where I had a recognizable style. People commented on the fact that it was very identifiable, and I guess it was represented by kind of dark, moody, mysterious images, but with a ray of light, some kind of hope at the end of a dark tunnel. And I think that kind of personified me for a large part of my photographic career. Now, what's happened over the last few years is that I embrace variability in my personality. I embrace day-to-day change, and I embrace the fact that I'm not the same, or my perspectives and perceptions of the world are not constant. I want to embrace every facet of my existence. So on a sunny, beautiful day like this, I want to feel bright and optimistic and happy. And equally on dark, gloomy, moody days, I want to be able to feel melancholy. So I want to be able to produce images, or I want the right to be able to produce images in any way that I want, from long exposure black and whites to minimalistic abstracts to high dynamic range, wide angled, glory light type images. Because if that's who I am in those moments, then that's what I want to say. And if those things don't look as if they come from the same person, that doesn't really bother me. So what I want to do today is to get back into my office and sit in front of the computer for maybe a few minutes and look at a variety of images that I've made this year, because I've traveled to Spain and the Gobi Desert, to Huangshan Yellow Mountain, to the west of Scotland, to the Outer Hebrides. So there's a whole bunch of things that I've got to do so far this year, and many of the images are very different. They're very diverse, and stylistically there's a whole bunch of variability there. And what I'll do is I'm going to finish things off by looking at the development of portfolios, because what you can do with portfolios is to lump certain things together so it looks like a coherent body of work. So we'll cover both these things in today's video. So let's run back to the house in this glorious sunshine and get sorted in front of the computer. So I better get my running shoes on. See you there. Bye. Once we get our images home, what we're seeing in this particular case is a snapshot of many days in the field. I think it's important for me to clarify right now that I don't go into the field to make photographs. I go into the field to be there, because that's what I want to do. I want to be in the landscape, and really all my photography is an extension of my time in the landscape. So I go there, I engage with things because I'm generally inquisitive, and I make photographs as sketches. They're sketches of moments. And there are, if I was going to define my images in any shape or form, it would be that I'm responding to something. I'm responding to some kind of trigger, and I can select any of them at random and say it's either atmosphere or geometry. I think atmosphere and geometry are the two most important triggers for me. And when I start scrolling through some of these images, it's very easy for me to understand why I took them. Now you will notice that some of these are in color and some are in black and white. I will go into the field and shoot in black and white. I will shoot in square format in the camera. So I end up with a color. If I take this into the develop module, it will turn back into color, but the preview is in black and white. Now this is a very monochromatic scene. But at the end of the day, I'm pointing my camera at things that interest me. It's a curiosity more than anything else. So
that is always going to be a variable. Obviously, it's a function of where I am in the world and the landscape that I'm in, but it's always going to fall back to either geometry or atmosphere. This is clearly very geometric, whereas this one is clearly the atmosphere, the way the sun is rising through the fog. So there's always going to be some kind of trigger. I also shoot a lot in 16:9, which is why some of these photographs are natively in that format. I've cropped in camera. So realistically, in this first little example, all I want to highlight is that these are sketches of a landscape. These are not final photographs, and it's how I choose to process them that's going to have probably the biggest impact on their stylistic approach. So just at random, I've selected 3 of those photographs. This one is from the painted desert in northwest China. This second one is from Huangshan, Yellow Mountain, also in China. And this third one is from Lapland, the frozen Siberian spruce forest, taken in January. So there are 3 quite different images, and it's really important to clarify just how important every single decision that we make has on the impact of our photographs. Because if I just come in here with almost any random change, and let's say I first of all go in and crop to 16:9. So by getting rid of some of the space, it's compacting the interesting part into a more complex or more compacted form. And I just want to pull in that a little bit to get rid of some of that stuff there. And I can process this super quick. So I'm going to take it into black and white. I'll go into my black and white mix and look at some of these changes. Adjust contrast. And very quickly, we can end up with quite a dramatic and high contrast scene. Now, if I go into some of the other images, now this is obviously completely different in nature. It's very easy with images like this for them to get very, very colorful, because as soon as you start increasing contrast, you end up increasing saturation. So we have to be somewhat careful of that. Now I kind of like them a bit subdued, but I do like rich colors also. And again, we don't have to do much to images like this to make them look kind of fine. But there's a big difference between that and the one we looked at before. So stylistically, this image and this image have got nothing to do with each other. Although in both cases, there is a geometric quality to them, and there is an atmospheric quality to them. In the first one here, the atmosphere is being provided by the mist. In the second one, the atmosphere is being provided by the color. This is another atmospheric image, although it is somewhat, it is also somewhat graphical. I'm just going to pull that in a little bit. Sometimes you're limited with your composition based on how much focal length you've got. This is actually 500mm, so I had nowhere else to go with it. Now I'm going to make this really, really powerfully luminous and just dial back some of that color a little bit by cooling it. And there's a few sensor spots and stuff on there as well. But again, images like this, they need very little processing. It's really just establishing a mood and an atmosphere. So within the space of a few minutes here, we've looked at 3 images that are either atmospheric or graphical or both in nature, and we've processed them very, very quickly to basically emphasize those qualities. They're 3 completely different photographs. Some I prefer more than others, without a shadow of a doubt. This one I particularly like. But at the end of the day, all 3 of them have come from me. They're all representations of various moments that I've spent in the field this year. And do they all look the same or feel the same? No, I don't believe they do. I would say there's so much diversity between this and this that you would probably say that that wasn't from the same photographer, and therefore I'm proving my point that personal style doesn't have to be constant, because both of those images came out of me and how I felt about them at that moment in time. And of course I can process these images in any way I take or any way I choose. So there's absolutely no limits on what I choose to do with my work. So let yourself be free, and personal style can just be a reflection of who you are at that time, and it's a very, very relaxing way to be, because it takes all that pressure off of who am I and what statement am I trying to make. Just do what you want. It's that simple. I would like to end this short video on personal style by looking at the development of portfolios. Now, as I explained initially, when I'm out in the field, I'm making sketches. So I'm there just responding to things, engaging with things, and making images that are just, like I said, sketches of moments. Later, when I'm processing images, again, I'm responding to the ones that are speaking to me at that point in time. And how I process images is very much just a function of each moment. So most of the time I'm not thinking about creating continuity in bodies of work. So on my tours and websites, my tours and workshops, you're selling locations typically. Whereas here on alistairbenn.com, this is my personal portfolio, and I produce little collections of images that are they are consistent, they are stylistically similar. Typically they're made round about the same time. So this is a short portfolio here of 9 images from my trip to Lapland in January. And as you can see, they're stylistically quite similar. They're obviously subject driven is quite similar. If I go into the previous one, which is this one, so Music from Dark Spaces, I made this in October, November last year. And they're very representative of who I was and my state of mind at that point in time. And I was super intrigued with geometry, I was super intrigued with atmosphere, and I really love this series of images. It's one of my favorite bodies of work that I've actually produced. And there's a continuity here. It's a reflection of who I was at that time, not just at the time I was making the images, because stylistically there's a continuity there, but when I processed them, I processed them all in quite a short period of time as a collection. So it became a representation, a very strong representation of a time of my life. Now, what you'll notice is that there's no change in aspect ratio. Everything in here is a square. I would never in a portfolio situation mix squares with 4x5s with panoramas or 3x2s. I like to have a continuity of the aspect ratio, and rarely, or if almost never, would I mix black and white images and color images together. So feel free to come and have a cruise around alistairbenn.com. I hope you'd find some images here that you may like. This one here are abstracts from the Gobi Desert. And again, stylistically, they're completely different. There's virtually nothing in common between these images and Music from Dark Spaces, and perhaps they were made a year apart. So again, we're looking at facets of a personality and kind of artistic exploration and kind of exploring different ways of doing things. So to close off this short video, don't feel locked into the whole concept that personal style has to be a constant. Don't lock yourself into forcing yourself to make images in a particular way. I would strongly advise you to just be free and do anything you want. And then if you do start seeing patterns or things that you tend to like to do, start putting those images together into little collections, and they become representations of you. And I think you'll find that a particularly satisfying way to go. So I hope you've enjoyed this short film. There'll be another one along next week. If you do like my content, please hit that subscribe button. I'm putting some links down on the bottom of the page there for some other things that you might enjoy. And I'll see you all next week. So enjoy. Thanks a lot. Bye.